Hi, welcome to Chapter 2 for CMP 122. And the key pieces of this particular chapter are mathematical computations. So we're going to be dealing with formulas. There are three sections, 2.1, which are basic formulas, 2.2, statistical functions, and section 2.3, functions for personal finance. So attached to this content, you will find an Excel spreadsheet named Chapter 2 Expense Plan Original. So please open that, pause this video, open that file, and follow along. For formulas, we have three learning objectives. We want to learn how to create basic formulas. We want to understand relative referencing when copying and pasting formulas. I figure between 80 and 90% of your formulas that you create will end up being what we refer to as relative reference formulas. And the third objective, work with complex formulas by controlling the order of mathematical operations. Many of you learned that in your K-12 days, school days as PEMDAS. There are some other acronyms that might be similar to that. GEMDAS is another one, but we'll talk about PEMDAS. Now, Chapter 2 begins on page 105 of our textbook, so feel free to follow along with that. So what do we have here? We have, this is a figure 2.2, and it's a budget detail worksheet, and it's on page 107 of your textbook. So I have here some household utilities, and I have the annual spend of $3,000. Now, I don't have it looking pretty yet. I haven't made it look like money yet, but I'll get to that. I have food, gasoline, so I have all sorts of various expenses that I have here for my expense plan. Now, if you're looking at page 107, you'll notice that your annual spend and last year's annual spend are very close on almost all of them. They're the same. There's only a couple that have changed. So this is totally up to you. You could just go and type in the other set, or we could copy what we have and then we can modify what needs to be modified. So if I decide to copy through, I can, starting with cell D3, so I have my fat white mouse pointing to D3, I could select down all the way down to D11, and I could copy and paste. So I could click on the copy button and then click on cell E3 and click paste. Even though I only selected one cell, because the other cells below in column E are empty, it will automatically populate for me. And we've talked about different ways that we could do this. Another way that I could do this is to just select my range, D3 through D11, and I could just go down to the autofill, the skinny crosshair, and drag across. And I get the same numbers. Or I could just start at the beginning and just type through. But the reason I wanted to show you this is that, well, my household utilities, again, referring to page 107, is going to be $3,000, so no change. No change on the $2,250. This one here went up to $1,500. It was $1,200. So I can either just overtype. So from where I am, I'm just going to type 1200. And when I arrow down, it accepts the 1200. And my clothes, I'm going to spend a little bit, or I spent a little bit less on clothes last year. And my 1,500's the same, the 3,500's the same. I spent a little bit more last year on my entertainment. So I'm going to modify that up to the 2,250. So again, I can overtype, or I could click in and either using the formula bar or just editing. The two I like, then I'm just going to do 250. And when I hit enter, it accepts it. And I spent more on vacation. And this here, my last one, the miscellaneous, was $1,558. So a couple of different ways for you to figure that out. Now, what we have here, these are just values. They're not formulas at this point. They're just numbers. They're just values. Over here, these are labels. Up above are labels. And then we have some categories down here and over in A12. So we have a lot of labels. whenever you have a label, you're going to want to have either data or you want to have something related to whatever it is that we're trying to calculate here. So next piece, what we want to do is, we want to start to populate these areas where we're expecting to see numbers that we don't have any numbers. So let's start off with our monthly spend. So our household utilities is $3,000 a year. Well, what we want to do, because this is monthly, we want to take that value and we want to divide it by 12 because there are 12 months to the year. So all of our formulas will start with an equal. And now I'm going to click on my annual spend, or I could have just typed D3 in. And then I'm going to click on the division or the divide. So that's just to the left of the shift key that's on the right of your keyboard. Or if you have a numeric keypad, it would be up most likely near your numlock key. So equal D3 divided by 12, and click on enter. Now, again, I always recommend that people double check their math to make certain that the formula works. How would I do this? Well, if I sit on cell D3 and I type in 120 and then I hit enter, mathematically I know that $120, if I spend over the course of a year, I would be spending $10 per month. And sure enough, I have the $10 per month. So that was just temporary, just to make certain that my formula worked correctly. So I'm going to click on the undo button so that it will put back in the annual spend, which was the $3,000. So that works nicely for me. Now the next piece that I want to do is I want the same formula for all of these. So I'm going to skinny crosshair, drag down, or I could copy paste in a number of different ways. And you'll start to notice some funny-ish numbers. We don't have this looking like money yet. So I really don't know what food of 208.3333 would be. But once we set it up as a number, you will see that it will look like money. So let's do that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select from C3 through E11. So how do I do that? I'm going to start off by being in cell C3 with where my mouse takes on a fat white plus sign look, and I'm going to select the complete range of cells, and I come up to my home menu, my numbers section of the ribbon, and I'm going to click on accounting number format. Now in this case I have lots of I have decimal positions, so it's up to you if you want to see the decimal position or not. Now in my case, if I decide to remove the decimals, I'm going to decrease my decimal. Notice what happens to my 0.67s, my 0.33 as I do this. So when I decrease, my 0.67 becomes 7, my 208.33 becomes 0.3, and I'll do it a second time. And if I undo for just a second, I have for entertainment 166.7, but when I remove that extra decimal position, it becomes 167. Important to note, even though it looks like 167, the math that will be done or completed on this is equal D9 divided by 12. It will do the math on the 166.67, not on the 167. So it's important that you see that there's a difference there. Okay, so some other little pieces that we want to cover is this all is what we refer to as relative referencing. Everything that we did with our formula was in reference to where we were sitting. So let me go back up onto cell C3. And what I want you to do is hold down your control button and click on the tilde, which is the key just below your escape key. And here are our formulas. What I can see is my money amounts here, 3,000, 3,000. Here's my formula, equal D3 divided by 12. So the way relative referencing works is, notice the blue of the D3 and the annual spend is blue. So what this said is take what's one cell to the right of me and divide it by 12. So if I come down here to close, what it's saying is take what's 1 to the left of me, so the equal D6, divided by 12. And the same with C11. This is the formula that's being created is referring to relative to where the formula is going to be sitting, where the formula is, how did I get there? And that is what we refer to as relative. So it's just the column and the row. But later on, we're going to see how absolute cell reference works and how mixed cell reference works. Now this is considered, I'm going to control tilde back at, well actually before I do that, I want to make a comment here. Each one of these formulas is basically the same. It has one operator, the division sign. These are what we call simple formulas. So basically a simple formula is just that. It has one operator, just a single plus or a single minus or a multiplication or a division. It's just a simple formula. But now as we start to get into complex formulas, this is where we have to take into account the order of operations. So I'm going to control tilde back so that I can have my formulas, even though they're in the background, I want to see the numbers. So now we want to look at this column F where it says percent change. And in this particular case, what we're going to do is we want to look at our annual spend as opposed to last year's annual spend, divide it by last year's spend to see what the percent change is. So follow along as I type the first formula in. I'm going to start with the equal because all formulas start with the equal. Because I have a subtraction and a division going on at the same time, I need to make certain I have accommodated for the order of operations. So I'm going to use a parenthesis, which is shift 9, and I'm going to take my annual spend minus last year's annual spend, and I'm going to divide it by last year's annual spend. And I'll hit enter. So what I have here is a percent change, but gee, it says 0 here. Well, yeah, if we spent $3,000 last year, $3,000 this year, it should be a percent change of nothing, but that doesn't show as a percent. So I'm going to come up to my home menu, and I'm going to click on my percent style, and I want it to show as 0%. Now, if I want to have it with extra decimal positions, I can click here to show my decimal positions. So hopefully that makes sense to you that it would be a 0% change because I'm spending the exact same. So in a couple other spots, insurance should come up with the same answer, and taxes should come up with the same answer. So let's see what happens if we take our formula and we copy and paste it down. So what I'm seeing here is that I have 0% here. I have a 25% change here in my gasoline. My food or my clothes is a 20% change. So I have a number of different changes here that I can see. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense to you. Now I'm going to go back and make one slight modification so that we can keep the book the same, or our worksheet the same as what the book has. And one of the things that the book did is it had changed the food. It decided, you know what, food's going to cost, it cost less last year. Instead of $2,500, it was $2,250. So I'm going to enter $2,250 there, and I will see that I have something of a percent change. Now it's up to you if you want to decide how many decimal positions that you have showing. The book shows just one decimal position, so I can click just to show one decimal position. So here I have select, and I have the one decimal position. I'm going to end this video, and then if you would, please watch Chapter 2 Expense Plan Part 2. Thank you.